coli is found in lettuce, bean sprouts, and other vegetables. Ice cubes. Most common source is ground beef that has not been thoroughly cooked. And you can also get it while swimming from contaminated water. How did the water get contaminated? You'll see that in a video coming up shortly. It could be from rainwater coming down from where the cows are grazing. Could be from cross-contamination from the employees. Prevention of E. coli through vigorous hand washing for 20 seconds, proper cooking procedures, cook to proper temperature, and washing the produce, especially produce that will not be further processed, and that will be covered in the video that you're going to see as well in the next slide.
Some spinach fields.
That's the voice of Seattle attorney Bill Marler as he videotaped spinach fields. Marler toured California farms after spinach from this region killed at least 3 and made 200 sick because it was contaminated with E. coli. Marler is suing Dole Foods on behalf of an 86-year-old Maryland woman who died after eating the spinach. He also represents victims in Oregon and Utah.
There are quite a few cows, and we're definitely uphill from the fields that we just saw.
State and federal investigators believe cow manure from nearby herds washed into the fields, carrying E. coli onto lettuce and spinach in a part of the country that's nicknamed America's Salad Bowl.
Here's a field being watered that is just slightly downhill and down from the cattle farms that we just saw.
Another source of the E. coli contamination could have been the farm workers themselves.
Watching some workers harvest, you can see the porta potties.
E. coli is found in human waste as well as in cow manure.
It's hard to sort of understand how the state of California, the FDA, and the industry could have ignored this for, 20 outbreaks.
Attorney Marler told healthinspections.com consumers should be very careful eating salads made from bagged lettuce or spinach, often the case with restaurant salads.
Eating a bag of spinach or a bag of lettuce is like dating 30 people in a month. I mean, you're just bound to have the risk of being exposed to things you don't want to be exposed to.
The fact that bagged produce is pre-washed will not kill any E. coli that might be present. Meantime, in California, the investigation continues.
New spinach fields that have just been planted.
The cows continue to graze near freshly planted spinach fields.
Staphylococcus aureus, or staph, is an intoxication. In other words, it's from the poop of the bugs. Commonly found on the skin, nose, hands of 50% of all people. So if you're standing next to somebody, if it's not them, it would be you. So this would be why I walk into a restaurant that makes a lot of waffles, and the cook is standing back there, and he's got his fingers in his mouth, chewing on his fingernails, and not even chewing on the tips, got his fingers in his mouth. So I say to him, okay, now's where you wash your hands. And he says to me, oh no, I don't have to wash my hands. And guess why he didn't have to wash his hands? Because they wear gloves. So then I says, well, okay, but if you don't wash your hands, you're going to contaminate the gloves. At which point the guy did a 180 and walked out muttering to his buddy on the register as he was going out something about that jerk. So, staph causes severe cramps, diarrhea, and vomiting. The prevention, not surprisingly, is vigorous hand washing for 20 seconds, proper temperature control in cooking, cooling, and storing.
Like steak tartare.
I don't, so it's okay. Go ahead and read it.
Well, a dangerous bacteria may have made its way into your refrigerator. Researchers found nearly half, this is the part that's startling, half of the country's meat supply is tainted with staph infection. Most strains are resistant to antibiotics. Senior medical correspondent Elizabeth Cohen joins us from Atlanta. Okay, so this doesn't sound good. Is this as bad as it sounds?
You know, it's not quite as scary as it sounds, Karen, and I'll tell you why. When we talk about meat being tainted, people think, oh, I'm going to eat it and I'm going to get sick, you know, like from E. coli or salmonella from chicken. And that's not what this is. This is a staph bacteria. It's not that it's a good bacteria. It's not. It's not going to get you sick when you eat it. It could possibly, maybe, harm you when you touch it. That's the issue, is that it could give you a skin infection. So let's take a look at this survey again. They went to 26 grocery stores in 5 different cities in the United States, and what they found was that 40% of the meat, and we're talking, you know, turkey, beef, chicken, a variety, contained staph. 96% were resistant to at least one type of antibiotic, and half of them were resistant to at least 3 different types of antibiotics. So there's real concern that as we see this increase of staph-resistant skin infections, I mean, we've all heard about flesh-eating bacteria and whatnot, there's a concern that maybe, possibly, some of those bacteria are actually coming from the food we eat if we handle that food raw and then don't wash our hands.
Okay, so you sort of got to the question I was going to ask you. Is that the solution? Either handling food raw with gloves, or ensuring that we do what we're supposed to be doing, and that's wash your hands after you touch raw meat?
Right, exactly. I mean, that's a possibility. I mean, you sometimes see people in restaurants or other places, you know, wearing gloves. So let's take a look at some of the things that you can do. You can wear gloves. You definitely should always wash your hands after working with any kind of raw food product or undercooked food product. And you also need to cook meats to the proper temperature. That means, for example, no medium rare hamburgers. You need to do all these things. And clean surfaces. Like, the dumbest thing you could do would be to have raw chicken on a cutting board. You're cutting it up for your stir fry, and then you say, oh, let's make our salad, and you cut up a tomato on that same cutting board. Really, really bad, because when you cook the chicken, you're getting rid of the bacteria, but of course, you're not going to cook those tomatoes, and they've been contaminated with chicken juice.
And that's true not only for staph bacteria, but also for salmonella, for all other kinds of things.
I just keep actually a different, I have one cutting board for meat, and then different ones for the veggies and raw foods.
Don't use a wood cutting board for meat, because a wood cutting board can hold the bacteria easier than like a plastic one. All right.
I don't do a lot of cooking.
Allie's solution was to eat with like this instead of
if you don't touch anything, you just eat with your mouth, you should be fine, right?
That's another idea. That's another idea.
A little messy, but you know.
To cut it and cook it.
I'm here to think outside the box. Thanks.
Botulism is the most dangerous of all the foodborne illnesses. It's anaerobic, meaning it does not require oxygen, and it could cause death. So that's why it's extremely important to us, because you don't want to kill somebody that is definitely hazardous to your career. What do we look for to prevent botulism? We look for the swollen ends of cans. Why do they swell? Because the botulism bugs go to the bathroom. They overfill the can, so the can swells. Prevention of Clostridium botulinum, or botulism, is strictly adhere to the processing procedures, especially time and temperature. Clean and sanitize your jars before you do canning, if you're doing home type canning. Cook to proper temperature before you put the product in there. Be aware of the effects of damage to canned products, such as rusted or swollen cans. The swollen cans, we know that means there's quite probably botulism in there. Rusted, you can get a hole in the can and you get more bacteria in there. And beware of home canned foods, because they may not have learned properly how to clean and sanitize and cook to proper temperature, and you don't know what they did. So you certainly can never use home products in your commercial establishment, but even at home, beware of your home canned foods and make sure you don't see any signs of botulism on them. Clean and sanitize a can opener immediately if the suspected product is open. So you're opening cans, bing, bang, bing, bang, bing, bang, and the one can starts to wobble, and you look at it and say, oh my goodness, the ends of the can are swollen, it might have botulism. You would want to clean and sanitize everything that came in contact with and properly dispose of that product. Viruses multiply only in a living host. What's a living host? That would be you or me or a dog or a cat. Otherwise, they're just hanging out waiting to be transported to a living host. So they exist, but they don't grow in the food. They're just hanging out. Example would be HIV, which is not a foodborne illness. Hepatitis A, or Hep A, is spread by infected food workers. Can be spread in the final stages of food preparation after cooking or in unheated foods such as salads or sandwiches. So by the final stages of food preparation, what we mean is just because the chef does a perfect job and cleaning, sanitizing, wash your hands and everything, you hand that food to a server who either is contaminated themselves or who just picked up some dirty dishes from a contaminated customer, didn't wash their hands after doing that, and would contaminate the next plate they touch. Also found in contaminated raw shellfish. Note that hepatitis B is spread by sex and drugs and is not a food issue. So unless you're having sex with the chef, which you're not supposed to do anyway, we're not concerned in the food business about hepatitis B. We're concerned about hepatitis A. Hepatitis A is preventable. Food workers can be immunized. So, for example, in Las Vegas here, you must get a hepatitis shot before you can go to work in any food establishment. Proper hand washing can minimize or reduce the spread of hepatitis A. Not going to stop it, but if you wash your hands, if you were contaminated from someone else and you wash your hands shortly thereafter, you're going to not spread it around to so many people. So maybe instead of 100 people getting contaminated, maybe 10 or 15 would, if everybody was washing their hands and doing everything proper. So it's not going to stop it necessarily, but it's going to minimize or reduce it. Infected food workers must not be allowed to work with or near any food or other food workers. They go home and the health department is notified. Some outbreaks that made the big time news. Chi-Chi's, 600 people were made sick, 4 people died. That was from Mexican green onions. They had a couple of cases and they are out of business. One person collected $6.5 million. Total compensation was $50 million. And Chi-Chi's, which was already into bankruptcy, that was the end of them. So they weren't doing too good before, but it killed them as well as a few people. So to minimize those possibilities of having those foodborne illness outbreaks at your establishment, check your employees for yellow eyes, yellow skin, and diarrhea.